Child, I completely forget to come back and finish telling you the story from yesterday, you know. Recording? I tell you about the music we used to make? No, I go be quick then. And I have plenty still document online too. We had many types of music, you know. Calypso, soca, parang, steel pan, Trinidad, dancehall, reggae, contemporary, pop, rock, hip hop, rap, reggaeton, everything under the sun you could think of. We had that there. And musicians too. Every third Trinbagonian was a musician. And if you could only hear how if you could only hear how sweet the steel band used to sound live. A full band in Panorama. Well, because they outlawed it, the neighbors told all the places that used to have them up, like YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Apple Music, all of them. You told them that our music was hate speech and that they could be sued for promoting hate speech and keeping it online. Not one of those companies had a spine to say no. So I'm glad for what happened to them. It was people who had physical copies or had things stored away and downloaded illegally. That's how some of the music from them days survive. Or from songs we would try our best to remember. But plenty was lost. Well, plenty. Imagine every year about 500 soca and calypso songs alone would come out. Yes, every year. Different and new. And by carnival time, everybody know it. I guess that's a good one to compare to, but ours was the first in the world and the best. Across there they do samba and thing, but we still whine our waist and get on bad. Another time, child, another time. All right, where we was last time? Yes, I remember now. Thank you. I think before we talk about that, it's important you understand how all this start. You know how it start? Well, go ahead. Tell me how it start. Well, they really leave no real parts in school, boy. Let me tell you it from my point of view and correct the parts of the history I've wrong. You could say that it started in April of that year when we got a new prime minister. Or you could say that it started November the year before when the neighbors had the election and put that man into power. You know, our prime minister seemed to be in lockstep. Or better yet, he would lead and she would follow. Woke this illegal immigrant start, making wherever great again. Not a single original idea came out of either of them. She was copying him, and he was copying whoever his favorite dictator was that day. Anyway, we used to be next to this country called Venezuela, and its president was a piece of work too, mind you. At least that's what I heard. I didn't know too much because I thought it didn't concern me. I know, right? Real people used to be like that too. What was real to us was just what was right in front of us back then. We had no idea that this could happen to us. Well, it continued like this. The neighbors they sent over some warships first, saying that they were there to fight some gang or the other. And our witch with a different letter at the start of our prime minister told them, yes, come. We need help fighting these dangerous gangs. Y'all could dock, y'all could have back shagramas, anything y'all need, we'll give you. Maybe she was thinking that the best way to deal with a bully was to make friends and be bully with them. But she should have listened to the other Caribbean islands, who had banded together and condemned our neighbors' warmongering. But she said the other islands could speak for themselves. She was putting Trinidad and Tobago first, bun anyone else. And so they came. They said Venezuela was trying to encroach on Guyana land, or there was some fight on a river somewhere near the Amazon, or maybe it was a failure of diplomatic communication or something. And so the neighbors took her up on her gracious offer and landed their nasty ass ships with their nasty ass men and women on it. They landed, and initially we thought we could just ignore them. But then, as tensions increased and they started blowing up boats in the water, they said they needed carnage too. Yes, carnage is where my father's family is from. They needed it for strategic security reasons. So they started moving in carnage. Exactly. That's the issue itself. Because of course there was people already there. So they started saying the people of Carnage, because they were fishermen and fisherwomen, were maybe the ones bringing in illegals and drugs on the boats. So they confiscated their boats. And when the first riot happened down in Carnage, obviously things escalated. You can't just come in and take away people's livelihood off of foolish speculation. No evidence. Because all they was doing was bombing ships. All the evidence they say was unreachable on the seafloor. Or rather, we thought they couldn't come in and do something so wrong, so wicked, or at least wouldn't be so bold-faced with it. Yes, that's exactly what happened. We end up with one side having glass bottles and sticks and things to bang and make noise, and the other with semi-automatic machine guns and full riot gear and shields and warships. So of course when the Carnage massacre began, the neighbors said they had the right to defend themselves, that they felt threatened by the people and that they did their best to minimize casualties. I lost my grandmother then, a 73-year-old woman armed with nothing more than a pot and a wooden spoon. Somehow she made them feel so threatened that they were forced to beat her to death, along with a dozen other people, and shoot dead many more. Things were quiet after that for a little while, and the media went with the story that the soldiers gave them. Unruly crowds led to warning shots being fired, which hit some, resulting in minimal casualties. Now we have an interview with one of the brave soldiers who survived that day. We couldn't believe it either. I couldn't believe that such blatant lies could spread and be repeated and begin to be believed by people, even by our own people too. Her? She was on her own usual shit. She said that our neighbors had done a favor by getting rid of some of the dangerous criminals and that she welcomes their further help in stabilizing the country after the first wave of protests erupted and the people demanded she step down. Trinidadians were getting a taste of the sour wine that Haiti had to guzzle for centuries, that Palestine was being waterboarded with for close to a century, that Sudan, Iraq, Korea, and so many other places subject to our neighbors' imperialism and destabilization knew only too well. And we didn't like it. We spattered right back at them. So it came like they had forget about Venezuela and were solely focused on making an example of us in Trinidad and Tobago. They didn't send any more ships to. We had graduated to drones and fighter jets and helicopters, an upgrade in technology and an upgrade in oppression. No, this was still before the big bombing, back when they killed in small batches and not hundreds of people at a time. It's probably how you heard about the Savannah. You ain't hear about the Savannah? You ain't hear about the Carnival Uprising? What about the Lupino sniper games or the mass graves in Toku? No? You know, the Carnival swamp used to just be filled with bodies. Yes, for real. Once they ran out of space, they would just throw the bodies in there to rot. Yeah, we saw it, but didn't really know what to call it yet. Eventually, somebody used the word genocide, and it stuck. This was the beginning of the genocide. Can we listen? I need a quick break. Yes, a quick one. I promise this time.